Hello everyone, I'm Annie Gibbins and you're listening to Memoirs of Successful Women, the podcast where you get to hear candid conversations with fascinating women from around the globe who share aspects of their business and life journey, how they measure their success and what they have learnt along the way. Well, hello and welcome to Memoirs of Successful Women. Today, I'm going to be introducing you to an incredible woman called Julie Randall, who has a book that she has coming out in the US on the 7th of September. It's called, oh, can you see me there? It's called Patient 71. And so we are going to find out today why Julie Randall was patient 71 and why she has this book coming out. It's been out in Australia. It's sold already tens of thousands of copies. She's amazing, ladies. But today we are actually going to hear her journey, which is going to be framed around the power of the promise. When we make promises to people or to ourselves, what does it actually mean? And how powerful can that be to drive us through incredible moments in our life? Now, welcome to the program, Julie, for a start.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Annie.
It is such a delight to have you on my program. I'm going to start the listeners off by just getting a context of what we're going to be talking about today. And I'm going to do that by reading the back of the book that you are hopefully all going to go and buy as soon as it hits your shelves and will be available on Amazon from the 7th of September in the US. So let's have a little read. The story that we're going to hear Julie unpack today, it says this is a story about a woman who thought her life was just about perfect. Then out of the blue, Julie Randall went from a fit, fun-loving wife and mother of two to not knowing what had happened or why. After a sudden, severe seizure, Julie discovered she had a malignant brain tumor. Diagnosed with stage 4 metastatic advanced melanoma, she was told to get her affairs in order because she didn't have long to live. Oh my gosh. Let me tell you, everybody, we're going to start here by talking with Julie about what was this moment like. How can you go from being a fit and healthy 50-year-old going, you know what? My life rocks. I've got a great hubby. I've got a couple of great kids. I'm celebrating my 50th birthday. I'm fit and healthy, to suddenly collapsing and getting told, sorry, sweetheart, you don't have long to live. What on earth happened there, Julie?
Are you talking about me? Did that happen to me?
That happened to you.
Oh, I know. Every time I hear it, it's like, really? Did that happen? Look, it was kind of funny back then because I was pushing back on turning 50. I even sent out invitations for my celebration, Julie's 40 10th, because I didn't want to turn 50, and I thought, maybe I could stay 40 11, 40 12, and I'd just be in my 40s forever, right? So I learned pretty quickly, be careful what you wish for. So I was just had celebrated my birthday, had a great night. About 5 days later, I was driving to work. Crystal clear, remember this moment, because I was driving along practicing gratitude. And I was thanking, it was a winter's day, but a beautiful sunny winter's day in Australia. Driving along, you will know the road, Annie, Wakehurst Parkway, thanking the universe for my kids and my life, my health, my fitness, and even my husband got a mention that day. I was even thanking the universe for my husband. So it was a great day. I was actually training for an over 45s state level touch football tournament. Wow. Training, felt fittest I'd felt in a long time. So I go to work that day. It was a Thursday, 21st of June, 2012. And it was my end of my working week because I worked up to Thursday. So, wow, was I in a good mood. And on top of everything else, we've been taken out for lunch by one of the bosses. So life couldn't have been better. So I worked in the CBD, the Sydney CBD. We walked down to the opera house, had a beautiful lunch, couple of wines, walked back to the office. One of my colleagues asked me a question and I couldn't answer. I couldn't find the words in my head to answer, and he just looked at me, and apparently I did come out with, I can't find my words, which was quite funny because I found those words, but I couldn't answer him, and he told me to go and sit in the foyer and he would keep an eye on me, and I was gone. Just like that. And I woke up, still don't know how long. I had a massive brain seizure in the foyer of the office. Don't know how long I was out, but I just know I woke up with my head down and paramedics calling out my name and trying to bring me around.
And at this stage, your staff are like, has Julie had too many drinks? Julie's fit and healthy. She's been happy an hour or two ago. She's gone down to the bar. She's had some drinks. She's come back, and like now she's lying on the floor.
Yeah.
Fitting.
What the hell's going on? I mean, yeah, they must have thought, gee, Julie's a lightweight. She only had 1.5 glasses of wine, but
wow.
Yeah.
And then your life just unravels. You're suddenly getting taken off to hospital. You don't know what's happening. It's confusing.
Yeah.
Then what happens?
Yeah, so I get taken off in the ambulance, and I do like to joke, and apparently I said, that's it, I'm never eating Chinese food again. And as they took me out, and it was the weirdest thing, and I felt really, really ill, really, really sick. And I just knew, when I was in that ambulance, I just thought, there's something majorly wrong here, because the feeling I had in my head before I blacked out was something I'd never experienced. And in those seconds, I thought, Julie, you're gone here. Like there's something bad's going to happen. It was like within 2-3 seconds, and then I was out to it. So yeah, we go to emergency, and I have scans, and my husband gets told, and he rushes over, and he tried to blame it on all the partying I'd been doing for my 50th birthday, which I wished with every fibre of my being that was the case, but I knew it wasn't.
That would have been great. Yeah,
that would have been good. Oh, she's just tired. But after scans and a little bit of waiting, it was confirmed that I had a brain tumour, which just, knocks you for 6. And, of course, they didn't really know whether it was malignant or not, but it was looking like it was.
Wow.
So, and so then they said, we're going to have to do more tests. We're going to have to scan your whole body. And that took 24 hours to get the results of that. So, never forget that night in hospital. They transferred me to a ward, and
must have been the longest 24 hours ever, right?
Seriously.
This 24 hours either tells me I've got this, metastatic brain tumor, or, oh no, they just got it wrong. I've got something. Just get.
I've got it. Or a tumor that's not malignant and they could remove it, but no. So this literally 24 hours, and I was in with a lot of old people moaning and coughing and all night long, and it was such a nightmare. And what was also as hard is, like, of course my children were distraught, not knowing, and then I had to send their father, I had to say to my husband, you just need to be with the girls, what us mothers do, we just go,
exactly,
suck it up, take one for the team. And I would have loved him to be with me by my side all night, but he couldn't be. So he went home, and then he came back in the morning, and the day dragged on and on and on. And then at about 5:30, I think, I could see them coming.
Wow.
I could see the doctor, and I could see people on either side of him, like interns. I think there were 2 on either side. And in that instance, I thought, this isn't good.
You've got the team.
You've got the team. You're teaching them how to break news, bad news to people. I kind of knew it instinctively.
Wow.
So, yeah, they come up and he says, sorry, every time I get emotional.
It's all right. It's all right. Oh.
And he says, you have tumours in both lungs, liver, pancreas, lymph nodes. Did I say that? Look, 80% of my major organs, and, you know, basically finished it off with, it's not good. I felt like saying, no shit.
It's not good at all.
It's not good at all.
Oh,
and with that, and I remember him looking down at Scott and saying, you're not saying much. And Scott saying, what the F do you want me to say? Like, we were just
shocked.
Yeah. We were just shocked. And then he wanted to sign, give us drugs. Could I wait around for drugs to be dispensed? And seriously, I got out of bed. I had the gown on and I took off. And Scott just picked up my bags and followed me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fight or flight. Hello, I'm flying away because my worst scenario here was a malignant tumor in my brain, and now you're telling me it's in all of my organs.
Yeah.
And and this is, I can't even process. I'm not surprised.
No,
you feel
I mean, try process that. Like,
yeah.
That was next level. Once again, hard to believe it was me, and it was 9 years ago.
Yeah.
And I still have that level of emotion attached to it.
Yeah. Well, because it's everything. It's life-changing. Your head must be absolutely spinning. You've got your gorgeous girls who at that age, I think from reading the book, one was doing the HSC, so final year at school, and the other one had just finished. So you've got them at this stage of your life that, you need to be there for them. They still need you. Your husband's, that's right. Do you send husband home? Does he need to stay with you? What does this mean? What is this prognosis? And also, can it even be true? Because how can you be a week before training, to be a top, you're a top athlete, you're competitive, you're healthy. It sounds insane that you can be given such a crazy diagnosis without any forewarning. Do you look back then and go, I had some warning signs, or was it really that your life can just change in an instant?
No warning signs whatsoever. None.
No.
I felt fantastic, which is really scary.
Yeah.
It was crazy. So on the way home, from hospital, all I could think of is rehearsing in my mind how I was going to tell my children.
Wow.
And and we'd had my mother. We'd lost my mother to cancer, and my younger sister had a diagnosis, and that word only meant, one thing to those teenage girls. So so we arrived home, and my faithful dog was at the door, who would have missed me, and I pushed past the dog, and I didn't know where to go. I didn't know what to do. So I just went upstairs into the bedroom, and they came up one by one.
Wow. Insane.
And distraught, absolutely distraught. One daughter, she just kept saying, no, Mum, no, Mum. And the other one kind of was sobbing into my chest, and I couldn't bear it. So I ended up just going out on a limb and saying, I promise I'm not going to die. I promise you. And I was always brought up to keep promises. It was something that, if we promised something, we did it. And when I'm making that promise, I'm thinking, what the hell? This is a pretty huge promise to make, but I had to stop their pain. I had to stop their pain. And when I said that, they kind of went, oh, like they believed me. And, Mum's going to fix this. I think that was another word a couple of words. Yeah, Mum's going to fix this. So, then I'm
incredible. Absolutely incredible. I think anyone listening in just goes, it cannot even fathom being put in that scenario. And then even if you could, how you actually get through it. How do you, while yourself is unraveling and processing and is shock, being there, that mama heart to make sure that they're okay and that they're not feeling too uncomfortable or out of their comfort zones while even trying to hear this message, having them being so raw with you of no, mum, that no, I don't accept this as a possibility, because, and of course they couldn't. And I love what you've prefaced there of, but I promise you I'll get through this, and I know that we've talked about that before too, the power of the promise. And I think as you go through your story today with the listeners, you'll hear that when you believe a promise is actually something that you assume you will go through with, right? It's like promising to, when you get married or something, it's like, I promise that we'll be together. I actually believe in it. It's not a hope. It's not a want. It's actually I promise you, I'm going to be here for you. I'm going to make this. I don't know how it's going to work. I certainly can't even imagine what the next step is, but there is that deep desire to go, I promise I'm going to do something. I'm going to have to pull a rabbit out of a hat here. And then how did you then go on to do that? Because the medical diagnosis was that wasn't possible. You actually didn't even give a possibility. What did they say to you about your diagnosis?
So at that stage, they knew it was malignant cancer, but they didn't know what type of cancer it was. But anyone that's gone through this journey, it is one of the worst parts about it is the waiting. It's a waiting game. And so, about a week later, we'll give you a biopsy, and probably after that, you might have a appointment at the oncologist. And so that's what I did. I had to go and have a biopsy, and a few things happened in between. But to cut a long story short, I ended up with a professor at Westmead Hospital, and okay, so just to step back a bit, a local oncologist kind of gave me this a bit of false hope around, they've got, pills and things, they can do now to hold things, and, you're just grabbing onto any bit of hope. So we go over to see this professor, and she walked in to the room, and she said, shook Scott's hand. I think I was out in fairyland. I don't think I didn't want to shake anyone's hand on that. So she said, Julie, you've got stage 4 advanced metastatic melanoma. I'm sorry. There's nothing much we can do for you. And with that, I got up off the chair I was sitting on, and she had a little sink in the corner of her room, and I was just started dry retching, and all I could say was, my babies. Your babies are always your babies, whether they were teenagers or not, and Scott and the doctor actually had to grab me by the arm to bring me, back to the chair.
Wow.
Yeah. And then I think she started talking about chemotherapies that might have had 5% or 10% chance of actually holding things for a while. I'm talking about months or weeks, or nothing was hopeful. And then to make matters worse, as we stood up, her assistant tried to hand me a brochure for palliative care.
Oh.
And what was even worse, Annie, is then she said, can you come into the next room and get weighed? And I politely declined, because I thought the last thing I need this morning is a bad reading on the scales.
I thought I was fit and fabulous, but a week later, I'm actually not happy if you just start sizing me up and taking my weight and my measurements.
You're not getting me on those scales.
You're not getting me on the scales. I don't care about this. Now, you've mentioned the word holding me, so that what you're actually sharing is that they're actually talking about a treatment to try and just keep you where you are on hold. They're not telling you, they're not giving you hope here of a cure. What brings Julie back to Julie before this horrific diagnosis? What gets you home and with your girls and with your husband and living life? They're just weighing you to put you on a chemo treatment to hopefully 5% will hold you from getting worse. Is that the reality?
It could make you, obviously I wasn't sick, still wasn't sick at this stage, didn't feel sick. It was surreal. And they're talking about putting me on some poison to maybe 5%, 10% chance keep me alive longer, but probably feeling sick as a dog with, no hair and, all the rest of it.
So what did you do? What choice do you make when you're sitting there and they tell you to go out and get yourself weighed and start this treatment that probably won't work?
So I didn't like those odds, I didn't like those odds at all. I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, but I know they aren't
not
great.
Good.
So at another appointment, I think with a local oncologist, we talked this through, and he said, I said, I don't like those odds, really. What are these drugs going to do me? I don't like it. So he had come across an experimental combination of chemotherapies that there'd been a trial in Germany of 30 or 40 people or something, and people once again responding. None of this stuff had any long-term data, but 40%, not 10%. So he said, are you willing to give that a go? And of course, who's not going to go for the higher odds? But it was made quite clear that none of this was going to save me.
Yeah.
Crystal clear. So I did go on to that experimental combination, and it did actually hold things for a bit. But in the meantime, something that he said as well, like Scott said to him, is there anything else? Like, it's a big wide world. Is there anything else? He said, there's a few clinical trials here and there, happening overseas. And we said, can you refer us? What can you do? And he said, no, I can't do that. It's up to you.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Great. Exactly right. So you're in the worst scenario ever. They know people internationally, it's their field, and then it's up to you. I know when I read that in your book, I just went, what the hell? Like, is that really true? Do you know what I mean? Like, I know it's true, but it's like you cannot even imagine, your diagnosis is cancer, your prognosis is terminal, you're wanting to make promises to yourself and your kids and your husband, and you then go, okay, if I've got 5 or 10% here and this other guy says 40%, I'll take that, but it's still not good. And then to know there's even better odds, hopefully, even if it's 50 or 60, you'll take it around the world. And then you have to do that work by yourself. It's phenomenal. I found it breathtaking. But you did, because you're a gutsy girl and you're full of passion, and you're like, I'm not going to take this 40% business. No. I'm actually going to find out. So you just become Miss Google Detective, don't you?
Yeah. Yeah. So I went for the 40% because seriously, I did have to hold what was going on. Otherwise, I would have died before I got the chance to research, So I did that. And the minute he said, it's all up to you, went home, pushed past the dog again, on the computer, just Googling the hell out of my situation. And it wasn't pretty. And I could not find one soul in the world that had survived my diagnosis, not one. So, but there was a clinical trial, and it just jumped out at me, the one in Portland, Oregon, and it made a lot of sense. They were working with, which is now much more widely available, which is fabulous, but at the time it wasn't here in Australia. and it's called immunotherapy. And they were trialing, they teach your immune system or your T cells how to fight and destroy the cancer. And it was kind of first out of the rats. So it was pretty early days, but they were having good responses. I think we're up to, I think that might have even been a bit lower, 38% or something at the time. But the concept just resonated with me. The concept of teaching your body to help itself.
Yeah.
It just made sense. And when I read it, I stopped short of the side effects because there are about 465. I just went, that's me. That's what I need.
Wow.
And, I showed my husband, and I think he was all a bit thinking that I was on another planet, thinking that was going to happen. But I just started my campaign. I contacted them, and they were quite amused that someone from Australia was calling. And I remember, the guy that took the call, Chris, his name was, I think Daniel in the book, but his real name's Chris, was kind of like, he humoured me. And he's like, oh, yeah, we're having kind of new success here. We're just going to start with humans. And, and I'm like, well, I want to be one of those humans. I'm human. Haven't felt like it the past few weeks, but I'm actually human. And so that was kind of a glimmer of hope. But then all the rejections started, that I wasn't a US citizen. Well, no, I wasn't, of course. It was all closed and finished. The drug company would only allow 70 patients.
Yeah. And
that was all done. Then, how I wouldn't go the distance because I, miss home. Or what if I got over there and I had more brain tumours? They weren't going to.
Exactly.
So to cut a long story short, 3.5 months later into my death sentence, I should have been close to dying, I finally may or may not have read the Hippocratic Oath or discussed the Hippocratic Oath with them.
For those listeners, and I have read this amazing book, Patient 71. So you can hear the tone here. There were 70 places on this clinical trial. And so Julie definitely becomes 71 because of her sheer tenacity. 3.5 months of just begging, pleading, hello, I'm human, hello, you have a Hippocratic oath to look after people, your doctors, this is my life that you're dealing with at the same time as you're on treatment that is making you so sick, which is just holding you. It's absolutely phenomenal. You are going to, I tell you what, when I picked up your book, Julie, and started reading it, I'm like, oh, okay, like I'm not a big, I'll happily go and say I don't think I'd reach out for a cancer story. I could not put it down because it just showed me, oh my gosh, like imagine this scenario, what's she going to do next? What's she going to do next? And I must admit, I got this far in your story, which is your life. Oh my gosh. And then I'm just imagining this little junction here. So for those listening in, imagine this scene. So you're the mum, you're Julie with this situation happening. You're on this chemo, you've got 40% chance, if that, and it's only holding you. So as soon as you stop this, things are going to go down, but you're still on something. You have a fraction of hope. You also then are applying to get into this trial, and this trial is on the other side of the world with maybe even a slightly less chance, 38% compared to 40. But I love the way you went, but it was a wellness model. It wasn't a sickness model. And I totally relate to that as a health professional. So I can see why it just attracted you. But you're now having to make this decision when you beg and plead to then go, oh my gosh, what was that moment when they actually went and said, okay, you can join us, but now you have to leave your life. How does that work?
Yeah, so I had to leave my life and for 6 weeks go off the treatment that was holding things because they didn't want any drugs in my system. So I didn't tell anyone.
They would have killed you quicker than
Yeah.
the chemo would have.
No, I pretended, you know how kids pretend to go to school and they're actually wagging school?
Yeah.
Well, I wagged chemo.
Wow. Because the chemo that is there, they think that's at least your lifeline. You're then saying, I'm going to choose not to take that so I can clear my system so I'm ready for the next trial.
Yep.
And no wonder you couldn't tell them.
No.
Wow.
Yeah. So we get accepted. And as you know from reading the book, I had the monsters, the mind monsters, you know, saying, what are you doing this for? You know, you're going to go over there and you're going to die, and, you know, you'll be dead over there and you won't be with your family. And I kind of had to, you know, learn how to manage my mind and say, well, you know, the other part of me would say, or the other part of my mind would say, well, if I don't do this, I am definitely going to die. So it's kind of short-term pain for long-term gain. And so we decided, yeah, we were going to go. So it was just going to be Scott and I to begin with, and he would only come and settle me in and come back to the kids. But Remy, my youngest, couldn't stay without us because she was highly anxious about everything, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
So the night before, we're getting her on the flight, and I'm trying to email teachers, and she's doing a HSC. We get her on the flights, and then we had to leave our other daughter on her own at home. She had a job, and you know, she was a dance teacher, and she needed to stay. So she was 19, I think, at the time.
Absolutely huge. Absolutely huge.
Yeah.
So it's just her and the dog.
Yeah, her and Roxy. So she was great though, and you know, just on a side note, my girls have become very strong young women because of that experience, but it was very, very tough on everyone.
Yeah.
You know, I'd be over there and they'd be, you know, one would ring me because they were having a fight, you know, teenage daughters, and like, well, I guess I should say Remy came for a little while, but then she had to come back home, which is all in the book. Missed formals, missed my daughter's 21st birthday, all in the, you know, all in the name of just staying alive and becoming well, and that's what I had to focus on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because you made a promise.
I'd made a promise, and I was going to do absolutely everything I could, and if the worst happened, my daughters would know that I did absolutely everything to stay alive and stay with them. And that was kind of my train of thought. So yeah, talk about isolation, Annie.
Oh, I know.
Isolation, lockdown personified.
Lockdown, I know. Like, here we are, you know, I'm in Sydney, Australia, as those listeners know. We've been in lockdown now for 9 weeks at the moment, and you know, you just kind of go, but you're still in your home, you still got family, you can still do things. You have moved to the other side of the world. Both your daughters are now back in Australia. You're in the US, you're doing a trial. Hubby, through those who will read the book, will, you know, is coming and going and things are happening, but you're, in essence, you're in a foreign country, and this isn't just for a few months. You know, you were there for...
I was there for over 9 months.
9 months. So 9 months you're just there. So that sense of, and you're an outgoing person. You met people. You've met, you know, lovely people. The hospital were lovely. But that sense of, but I'm alone. What's that like when you're actually you're trying to be so powerful, and you know people are trying to help you, and it's like, oh my gosh, I'm appreciative, but I still feel so lonely.
Yes, it's really hard for me to even articulate how lonely that felt, even when people were around. And I didn't really get to know anyone probably the last few months. I mean, I'd go to the hospital and have my treatment. That'd all be very lovely. And I also promised in the beginning that if they took me on, I would do anything I could to help them fundraise, and which I did. At the end of the day, they got new guest housing a few years later, and I did a lot of campaigning for them. But so I kept that promise as well, which was absolutely amazing. It was a good feeling to be able to contribute. Yeah. But the loneliness, Annie. Oh, solar plexus is the word that comes to mind. It's not so hard as bad in your actual head as it is in your physical being. And I remember for the first time in my life understanding loneliness and how there are lonely people out there. I'm one of 5 kids. Like, you know, I never experienced loneliness in my life. But also, I think any cancer patient or people going through that sort of stuff do feel really, really lonely, because it's just always there, and you don't want to keep talking about it all the time or dragging other people down, you know. So
throughout your whole journey, I can hear that, and I noticed that reading the book, that you still, because you're so lovely, you're still trying to protect other people. Like, I don't want to burden them with my story. I don't want to, you know, they don't need to hear this. They're just trying to be nice and having me for dinner and bits and pieces, because life goes on. And so I can't even imagine what that sense is, that, you know, the world is happening around you. You must feel like you're just drowning in a little well, like it's almost like it's buzzing around, but you're not fully present in it because you heard it so much, right?
It was kind of, it was like I was on Mars, and that sounds crazy because we've been back there a few times since, and it's wonderful, and we have a great time, and we've just had friends just before the virus hit come and stay with us. So it's great, but I'm in such a different place now that I don't feel that loneliness. Exactly. And the other thing with me is I'm such a proud son of a gun that I hated being pitied, and I really, I didn't want to be pitied. I didn't want to. It's just not me, no matter what was going on in my life. So I certainly had a stiff upper lip.
Yeah, you're not an attention seeker, and I love that, because you've even shown, even while you've gone over there and you've kept yourself busy by fundraising for them while you're getting a clinical trial. So one, it's a good technique to keep busy and to contribute, but that's the kind of person that you are, and that's what I've definitely sensed throughout the book. It's kind of like, I'm just an average lady, just living a life, happy with what I had, not asking for too much, don't like all this attention, but this is crazy. And the driver throughout the whole journey is just this, I will not let this take me down. You've got this tenacity and this, this fighter spirit, which you must have even had when you were a little girl. Because that doesn't come out of nowhere, that goes and says, don't tell Julie Randall what is and isn't going to happen. I'm just going to turn this around, because this is not my story.
I was a pretty determined little girl, definitely. And I think in our 60-minute story that we did, the question was asked, has she been, always been in tough? My husband's like, yes. But to be honest with you, I did find a next level courage that I didn't know I had. And I'm finding that courage now too. Like, for instance, doing things like this with you. I get up on stage and, I don't care if there's 800 people in the audience. I've experienced what real fear is. And that's the fear of your children losing their mother or never seeing your grandkids. That's real fear to me. So now I just kind of, push through the other fear. Even if I'm fearful, I'm still going to do it. You're not going to stop me. And I just love that I'm now in a position where I can inspire and help other people. It just warms my heart like you wouldn't believe. It's become my purpose and passion. And so now I feel extremely blessed for my experience. My husband doesn't. I say, I'd do it all again just to be, he's like, I wouldn't.
Oh,
But,
no,
yeah,
he
it
wouldn't.
would have
He
been
would live
horrific
his
for
life
him.
and that's right. It's hard to say. But I also know that a lot of people who've been through significant challenges go, through it, the whole lot, I went, what is going on? I don't like this. I don't like it. I don't like it. And then after you've survived and you've grown so much, you're like, oh my gosh, but I wouldn't be at this new level of self-actualization, understanding, skill set if this didn't happen. So one, I don't think anyone would wish for stage 4 cancer on anyone with this prognosis. But I definitely know that, because you have gone through that journey and have survived, that's what makes you the brilliant mentor and coach and speaker that you now are. And I know you're going to be putting out courses and other things because now that cancer doesn't have to be the death word. It doesn't have to be the death sentence. Not everyone does survive it, but that mindset and that approach of, okay, well, I will try everything, is absolutely, fundamental to who you are and the way you approached your diagnosis.
I'm very passionate about not letting cancer take any more of you than it already has.
Yeah.
And there are some people that can't get over that, and seemingly that I see online and stuff, and I just get really sad because I think just don't let it take any more. Find something new that you can make meaning out of what has happened to you and go to the next level in your life. Like, everybody worries about recurrences of cancer. But at the end of the day, are any of us guaranteed tomorrow?
No.
I can tell you that when I was diagnosed, and we come from a big community, because I'm one of 5, so a lot of people know our family. We were very sporty. They had a big fundraise for us, which was so lovely. I couldn't go because it was just, can you imagine me being so proud, a proud person watching people donate money? Just couldn't deal. So that was really, really tough times for me, just to other people kind of pitching in, and I don't know, it's so hard to describe.
So you've mentioned that you wanted to find a real purpose in this, that you, through the experience, you've reflected back going, oh my gosh, where I am now, I wouldn't have even changed anything, which is just crazy. But it's because you've just got this new sense of self. You've got this new drive of, oh my gosh, who is this woman that Julie Randall has become? How do you see yourself different? And what does purpose mean to you? What is your purpose now?
So my purpose now is to, that word inspire, probably a little bit overused, but I just want to give people hope and inspiration, and not only through the cancer journey, but just to show people, when you step outside of fear and stop listening to those voices that tell you you can't do something, you can actually achieve amazing things. Like going back to the promises, after the promise to my daughter and several other ones, I distinctly remember, at one point, I think it was driving in the car to get my brain tumor removed, that I was saying to Mrs. Universe, please, Mrs. Universe, you get me through this. I'm going to write that book. I'm going to learn that musical instrument. I'm not going to be a gunner person gonna do this and gonna do that. Mm-hmm. I'm actually going to do all those things. And here I am promising, I'd write a book when I flunked English, but.
And let me tell you, it is so beautifully written. Oh my gosh, the words just come off the page. So it was, definitely ordained that you.
And I didn't try to be a literary genius. I just wanted to tell the story in an easy way and just connect with the reader, like it's just you and me. I'm telling you this story. This happened to me, but turns out I'm an okay writer. Turns out I could write a book. Turns out it's a bestseller. Like, who knew, you know? Who knew? Who knew that people would enjoy hearing me tell my story on stage and, you know, giving me the most amazing testimonials? I wouldn't have been doing that with my life, Annie. And, you know, life, it still has its challenges. I mean, of course it does. You know, we had to sell our family home because this journey cost us so much money. My husband's business, you know, he wasn't concentrating on his business. He was just wanting his wife to get well. And so we've had to navigate all of that stuff, you know, the financial stuff and things that come along with that, and both still working hard. I mean, I love this kind of work, but I still have to do other work as well, and so does he. But I think the tools that I've learnt throughout this journey about my mind and what sometimes it thinks it's trying to protect you, but it's actually, it's self-sabotage. And I call it out now. I just call it out. Thank you. I know what you're trying to say, you know.
I know you. That's right. That's what I picked up. You mentioned a lot about talking, you know, that you call them the monsters in your head. And I think we've all got that self-talk, but at a time like yours where you're making these massive decisions, that's right. You realize, I understood from your narrative that in the book that the voices in your head, which is you, they're so self-protective, or they think they're helping you, but your inner desire was actually wanting to go the opposite way. So it was a learning to actually, it's almost like knowing this person, these voices in my head. It's kind of like it is you, but it's also like I need to be aware of you to understand you, to then be able to have a discussion with you, and then to overcome, to sort of, you know, then be able to say, no, not at this time. I'm not going to entertain you. I appreciate your concern for me, but that's not going to work at this time. That's what I felt like I'd been introduced to Julie's Monsters, which is just an amazing concept that I've really thought of since reading your book. That, yeah, that's true. It is like another person that you have to put in your place, because otherwise the default controls you. Right?
It does. And I shudder to think of how many people still these days get a thought and believe it with no validity, or, you know, we tell ourselves things, and now I'll say to myself, is that 100% true? Like, is that, you know, oh, Julie, always, you know, this is just an example. You always lose the car keys or something, which is not something I do, but this is an example. And so then the thoughts spiral into, oh, you're bloody hopeless and da-da-da-da-da-da. Yeah. But really, do I always lose the car keys? No, I don't. We tell ourselves, we don't think of give ourselves enough accolades for the good things we do and the things we do well. It's always beating ourselves up for the little silly bad things that we do. And I've just learned so much about that. And when I say the monsters, I also say they're not all bad, because I did have a nice one and a pragmatic one. And I think my mind sort of went into a kind of traumatic stress disorder in a way, and it kind of created almost like other personalities above here.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, and the mean monster that I call him in the book was just trying to keep me safe in my comfort zone, because when your mind doesn't know a certain outcome, it defaults to trying to keep you where you are and safe. And had I believed that mean monster saying, what are you going for? You can't go to America. You'll probably die over there. You'll never come home. And what about you girls? You should be spending your last months with them. And that was tough. And I used to burst into tears and all sorts of things. And then I'd say, hey, hang on a minute. I know where you're coming from, but I have to do this. This is going to give me the chance to actually be with my girls for a lot longer, you know. And so it was just sorting my head out through all of that was but giving me great tools for now.
I know, and I know that's an area that you specialize in and that you'd been talking to me about before, which was, mind management. And I'd love you to share a little bit about what that means to you, because you've certainly had to manage your mind. We can't imagine when that moment that you go, oh my gosh, am I going crazy? I'm out of my mind. This is so surreal. I can't process it. And then you've got all that dialogue happening. And much of that was your voice, but also you'd have elements from a psychological perspective of other people's voices in your head, of what they expect of you and what they think. It must get all clouded and juggled up at times. And so you now really specialize in that mind management when you're confronted with a situation that you're wanting to pursue something for your promise, your purpose, your reasons. What does that mean to you?
So I think we all know if we're capable of something. I think if we want to do something in life, and there's something that you get that little it doesn't go away. Mm-hmm. I believe, and it's just my belief, you wouldn't think it all the time. It wouldn't be a constant thought if you weren't capable of achieving it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We're not saying to ourselves, well, gee, I think I'd like to just climb on top of the Harbour Bridge tomorrow and, do 10 somersaults, and I think I'm going to, I'll be right. I'll just dive straight into it. No, we don't think like that. But when it comes to like something like a book or doing what you do, Annie, podcasting, or for me, speaking on stage, we are capable of doing it. But because it's a little bit scary, our mind will tell us, don't do it. Get back in your box.
Yeah.
Get back in your cave. And therefore, so many people do not live the best of themselves. They really don't. And it's quite sad. And I think some people tell themselves, oh, that I could never do that. People say that to me all the time. I could never stand up and do that. I could never write a book. I could never. And I say, yeah, that's what I thought. And guess what? I can.
Exactly. You
yeah.
can.
Yeah. So it's
the monsters. Oh well, watch me. Then you can, right?
It's just kind of a little bit of background noise. I treat it like, and I'm not perfect. I still go through stages where I'll get some dialogue running and it takes off, and it takes me a while to sort of recognize it and step back and go, hey, you're not buying into that rubbish. It's and just listening. Yes, listen to the pragmatic voices, but best of all, listen to the cheer squad, the nice one that says, come on girl, you can do this. That's what got me through. Like I would go running, and I had a mantra, and my cheer squad girl, my nice monster would say, come on, you can do this. And then the mean monster would say, but no one else has ever survived this. And then the nice one would say, yeah, but there's got to be a first.
Yeah.
There's got to be a first to everything. So, that's kind of how I, in a nutshell, sort out my mind and teach others. And it's especially with a cancer diagnosis, like niggle, 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 it's going to come back. What if it comes back? All this sort of stuff. And
if and when it does, then you deal then. But you can't be living your life going, well, what if tomorrow's the day?
Yeah.
Be for any of us. I love what you said before then. Like, how do any of us know that we've got tomorrow? And you've done enough living of life, you realize crazy things happen that you cannot imagine or predict. And so you just got to wake up every day and do your best effort, right?
Yeah, and I think that's where I might have been going before too, when I mentioned a lot of people gathering for a fundraiser. And I found out since that, including my own brother, probably everyone really, but he thought I had no chance. I absolutely had no chance.
Wow.
And I remember one of my friends saying after a couple of drinks, do you really want to be a lab rat? And I said, well, I'd rather be a lab rat than a dead rat. So, you know, that was what people thought, that I was going to be a lab rat. But where I'm going with this is, all those years ago, probably 5 or 6 of those people at that fundraiser have passed away. Mostly through cancer. But they were there raising money for me and feeling so bad for me, and you know, they didn't even know what was coming up for themselves. So this is, and I don't want to be doom and gloom with this, because I'm so not.
No.
But it just brings home that we don't know, and we have to live our lives the best we can every day and have fun.
Yeah.
And have fun and joy. And while I was going through it, the worst of my situation, a biologist said to me, as he was telling me that melanoma cells are the worst cancer cells you can have, or one of the worst.
Thanks.
9 out of 10, thank you. And as I was leaving, he gave me some potions and herbs. And as I was leaving his office, he said, Julie, one more thing. You have to be joyful. You have to be happy and experience joy. I seriously wanted to punch him. I'm like, just being told, you know, my children aren't going to have a mother, and I've got 6 months to live. God knows what a slow and painful death. And you're telling me to be happy and joyful? And he iterated it. He said, your cells will respond. They'll know you're trying really hard to go back to, you know, the way you were. He wasn't saying that was going to save me, but I had to buy time.
Yeah.
You know, I had to buy time. So I made myself joyful in the worst possible circumstances. I would sing, dance, you know, do yoga, do anything I could. And that's really also, during this whole pandemic thing, helped me find ways to be joyful.
I bet you have survived this pandemic better than anyone on the planet, because after your 9 months and what you went through in total loneliness and isolation, it is so, I'd feel guilty about whinging about being in lockdown, you know, because it's all in comparison, isn't it? Like, it is hard for us at the time, but absolutely incredible. I bet that doctor is a man who talks to his plants as well. I love it. It's kind of like, you know, you put yourself on the positive, see the joyful, even in the worst of circumstances. There are elements of it's a beautiful day, or someone helped me, or someone's kind. And I'm sure that attitude of you know, hope and gratitude and real sense of joy is always possible. And I think that's when you get messages of like, oh my gosh, like I could hit you now, because how could you say that? But he actually knew a truth, didn't he?
Oh,
you know?
he did.
And so, and that's the thing that you're sharing with other people, going, you know, you can still have joy, you know. And I know when you're going to be coaching people through their journeys, which are all going to be different, and there's no guarantees with any of it, but you can always be positive and joyful around what you have. And I bet now you look back, you have clarity around absolutely everything that comes into your life and why you value it, because you've had to confront what you would have missed and what you can do without and what you value the most. I think
so and in that respect, such a big gift. It really is a gift. And you know, I'm here with my girls, and you know, see their names come up on the phone, and it's all exciting. And
it is joyful.
And it is really joyful. And as I say, they have really grown and blossomed through this, and they're my biggest supporter, and I'm theirs. You know, one of my daughters runs a dance school with 450 students, and she's 28 years old. So
incredible.
She's taken on a challenge. It's like, well, if mum can do that, then I can do this. And
because you're truly inspirational, and that's right. They've watched it, you know, they've lived it, and they know that all things are possible. Impossible can be made possible. You know, you were told, you know, there's no chance. I love it when people, it's just a blanket. There is no chance, no hope. There is always hope. There is always chance. And sometimes you actually have to do the ridiculously confronting effort of, oh my gosh, well, I'll find my own cancer treatment. I'll find my own solution. Sometimes, yes. Is it fair? No. But it's like, but if that's your reality, I love it. You did it. And it took 3.5 months, and you had to lower yourself and plead and say, hello, I'm actually a human being. You made those hard choices of leaving your everything that you love to go for the end goal. And for those, obviously, Julie did survive. She spent 9 months. She is the success.
Spoiler alert.
And spoiler alert, she's definitely still here. And she did become patient 71, because the 71, I think that's just, that extra one. I am the one, right? I'm the one who can make a difference. I'm the one who can actually go, well, who said there were rules of 70 in a trial? Who said I can't do this? And I just absolutely love that of your spirit and what you are now able to give to the world. And I know that this book is going to be so popular. So everyone listening in, because I know we've been going on so much, Julie and I could chat all day. It's called Patient 71 by Julie Randall. Definitely look out for it in the press. It's going to be absolutely amazing bestseller. It's just gripping, and even though we've gone over the overview of Julie's story, oh my gosh, like when I read it, I felt like I was there, through every little moment. I felt like I was in the waiting room. I felt like I was there with her husband. I can imagine the look on his face, like, oh my gosh, I can imagine, I can only imagine these crazy conversations that you must have had. And I am so honored by the rawness and the authentic sharing that you did, that allowed us to come onto that journey into your personal space. And your writing is brilliant. It was just incredible. And I just know that people are going to be just blessed so much, because it finishes with this sense of, real evolution through the hardship became this rebirth of Julie Randall. You weren't not happy with who you were before. You start this journey and conversation going, oh my God, I had the perfect life. But that's it. You'd go through these crazy challenges, and then now here you are doing all of these other things that you couldn't imagine. And there is a purpose for it. Otherwise, why did you have to suffer so badly? To be that person now for people all around the world who can reach out and go, oh my gosh, Julie has been there. Julie identifies. Julie knows what pure loneliness is. Julie knows what staring fear in the face looks like and feels like. Julie has done it before me, and she can definitely help me. And so I encourage people to reach out to Julie. How do they find you, Julie?
If they want to reach out to me, they can find me on my website, which is www.julierandall.com.au. And yeah, just find me there on my socials. And the American book cover's a little bit different. It's very similar to the one you were holding up, but it's a little bit different. But I haven't got my copy yet, so.
That's all right, because we're in lockdown and we're Aussie girls, so we're just doing what we can. But the great thing is we've got to experience, tens of thousands of Aussies have already had the opportunity of reading the book with a different cover, and we appreciate Americans want a different look and feel. That's all right. Same story, same amazing impact. And I'd love to finish this podcast with, what does being successful on your own terms look like or feel like for you now? For you to actually go, you're an inspiration to women around the world now of what you've come through and what you're now doing, and being boldly putting yourself out there and fulfilling those promises. What does success look like for you?
Okay, so I'll say straight up, it's, my marriage and my family and that all being tight, and I love that so much. But for me, it's really just spreading the word, getting my story out there to inspire more people. I mean, and I know I'm doing that without, I don't like to sound, egotistical or anything, but I know I'm doing that because of the messages I receive.
Yeah.
And some of them, and not all cancer patients, a lot of them, I had one woman that said she was too scared to fly, too scared to get on a plane, read my book, booked a flight. And flew away on a holiday. Another person moved from Scotland to Australia. This is a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
We're procrastinating and just went, no time for procrastination.
Do it.
You know, and to the point that one man messaged me and said, "You saved my wife's life. We read your book and looked outside the square." And so, you know, even that one instance alone for me was worth the hardship. But there's many more of those people. And there's many more of those people that are fearful of living their best life. And I know that's a term that comes up a lot, and it's an Oprah thing. But it truly is real. Like, you know, I haven't read this book, but there's a book out at the moment that everyone's talking about, The Regrets of the Dying. I don't know if you've read that one or not. But I believe that a lot of that stuff is all around just not stretching yourself to be, you know, the best person you can be. And some people don't have that desire, but many do. You know, many people do. And if I can help people do that, or just do something they were too afraid to do, then I'm a happy girl. So it's just so that's why I'm so excited about the American book launch, because it gives me a whole new audience.
Yeah.
You know, and plus I love the Americans very much. Of course, that's where I did. That's where I did.
At home now. Yes.
Yeah, that's where I did. You know, I lived in Portland, and yeah, we've been back a few times to do some speaking, and yeah. Any Americans on? Love you.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for being on my program today. I wish you all the best for your US launch on the 7th of September. Everyone go out, find Patient 71. It'll be on Amazon. It'll be on all your best booksellers. And definitely reach out to Julie Randall at julierandall.com.au for us Australians. And make contact with her if you've got someone who needs her inspiration, support, guidance. Definitely reach out. She would love to share with you.
For sure.
Thank you.
And make some promises, people. Promises to yourself.
Thank you.
Thanks, Annie. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Memoirs of Successful Women. You can find me at anniegibbins.com, where you can download my free resources, get connected on social, and check out my online magic transformation program. If you love this show, feel free to subscribe to future episodes and, of course, share it with your friends. I'll see you again soon, and until then, happy podcasting.